Hey, Mark Henry here. So I'm on the Sci-Fi Guy Canada blog, and Doug was nice enough to have me and print up a whole bunch of questions for me to answer, so that I wouldn't have to think too much, which is good because I don't like to do that. I don't like to think when I don't have to. Um, so I'm gonna answer these questions and hopefully have some fun, and I'm not gonna edit it, and we'll see what happens. Um, Sci-Fi Guy asks, that's Doug. Until Amanda Farrell, most urban fantasy or paranormal books that referenced haute couture were written by women. You excel at it. How was that achieved? You know what? I've always been into design, and so it wasn't that big of a stretch for me to um, do research on fashion versus like architecture or something like that. And uh, so I'd sit around Borders and thumb through the Vogues and L's, and I would get weird looks, and I'd wink back. Like, motherfucker, look at me. Anyway, so yeah, no, I did a lot of research about it, and I went to stores, and I talked to shop clerks, and I was like, well, okay, so I'm fitting my fictional character in your clothes. What would you suggest? Also, what would be super expensive, and also what would you probably break your ankle on when it came to shoes? So they helped out. People help. Reality TV and Amanda seems like a match made in heaven. Tell us about the idea behind Battle of the Network Zombies. Which is interesting because when I think of Battle of the Network Zombies, I think of Agatha Christie. I don't think so much of reality TV, although it plays a big component. The book is really my homage to those locked door English manor mysteries, but with drag queens and Filipino nail tech vampires whose heads fly off and there's tentacles and shit. Anyway, so the fact that I'm completely addicted to reality TV, I think goes into everything that I write. But in terms of the title, I don't. I'm wondering how many people actually have watched Battle of the Network Stars, and that was in the early '80s. That show was on all the time, and they just had people in um, those really short athletic shorts with the knee-high sweat socks, which were awesome. I mean, I should be wearing them now, just so that you can, get the picture. But that's obviously where the title came from, and it does, of course, play a big role because the reality TV is going to be Amanda's savior, sort of, because she's hit the skids. They've all kind of hit the skids by this point, by the third book. So that's that. Number 3, Doug asks, Battle of the Network Zombies features an appendix with a flashback story about Amanda. Any plans for more short stories or perhaps a prequel novel? Which is hilarious because I tell people that the appendix in Battle of the Network Zombies is my YA. But of course, if I put anything remotely out like this as a YA story, it would be it would be in so many editors' trash cans. It's probably just a very, what I see as a clearly obvious thing. Amanda was a disturbed adult before she even became a zombie, and therefore she was a disturbed child, and a disturbed adolescent, and sexualized, and all those things because of serious parental problems going on in the home, obviously, if you've read any of the other books. And so I'm this is the first time that anyone's mentioned it in a review, the appendix, and I would love to get people's opinion of it because it's strictly non-paranormal evil. Anyway, that's about it. Doug asks, what were your zombie influences, literary and cinematic? Well, Night of the Living Dead, obviously, and Dawn of the Dead. George Romero, for sure. But literary, I have to go back to Douglas E. Winter, who edited quite a bit in the 80s. Lots of horror anthologies in the 80s. And he did a couple of stories based on the Me generation writers of the time, Bret Easton Ellis and Jay McInerney, and he did zombie versions. One was called Less Than Zombie, the other one was Bright Lights Big Zombie, and those were big influences, really. I think when I look back at how this came to be, how I went for a zombie protagonist rather than just have a human protagonist fighting zombies. And I think it's really just this idea of sentience came more from literature than it came from movies at the time. So also I loved Shaun of the Dead. I mean, if we're going to look at influences, the horror comedies, Return of the Living Dead, Dead Alive. Oh, Peter Jackson's Dead Alive is just a gory, hilarious thing. It's like, it's so gory you have to laugh at it. And that's kind of where I went with a lot of the stuff that I write. Okay. Amanda number 2 was Road Trip of the Living Dead. Do you have an interesting personal road trip experience you can relate? If not, feel free to make one up. We won't know the difference. And you won't know this. Well, actually, my wife and I did the entire road trip. That exact path that Amanda, Wendy, and Gil take on their trip to South Dakota, and we got when we got out there, Caroline was feeling like she wanted to have some. Oh, she's gonna kill me for telling you this, unless I'm lying, and then of course she won't. She had to have some chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream, and apparently it was not good. It did something to her, because the following day she was spewing chunks everywhere. We pulled up at this gas, but it didn't. Of course, that didn't stop us from visiting all of the different landmarks in South Dakota. You know, Mount Rushmore's there. We couldn't not go to that. So she just sort of littered all of the landmarks with her vomit. And I remember the worst of the vomit was we pulled into this gas station in what's the name of the city? Rapid City? No, it's not Rapid City. Anyway, we pulled into this gas station, and Caroline threw her door open, and this, of course, she is facing like at least 6 cars all gassing up, and she throws the thing open and just heaves like this huge amount of vomit, like of lots of water she's been drinking to stay hydrated, all over the ground, and you can just see the wave of people just going like that while they're pumping their gas. It was so horrible. It's my road trip story. Thought you might like that. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on the time. This might get split into 2. Recently, Amanda Farrell had gotten herself into a spot of trouble, and the Save Amanda Farrell campaign was created. How is the campaign doing, and what can readers do to help? You can buy the books, particularly Happy Hour of the Damned in Mass Market. Those are the smaller ones. Of course, I don't have one handy. This kind. Here I'm pimping out Anne Aware. The small kind. Buy that one for sure, and do it quick. If it came out at the end of January, they'll probably stop stocking that in most stores at the end of March. So get out there. Let's see, and spread the word. Tell people that it's not, it's really not your average urban fantasy. It's more of a comedy, and the structure is a comedy rather than an urban fantasy framework. So, although there's a lot of world buildings and zombies and there's a mystery to it, there's a lot of comedy as well, and raunchy, smutty sex. So, there you go. What other projects are you working on that you can share with us? I can't. I could tell I am working on a YA that has been really difficult for me to write because I've had to sort of dial down the me in it, and that's about all I can tell you. It's gonna be under a pseudonym too, so that's it. I'm gonna split this into 2 vlogs.